Hi. So this is going to be a little bit different than what I've done on this channel so far. Every day after the gym, I go to the specific small restaurant to get food that I like, and this one time I go, the guy has a camera up, and I asked him what he was doing. And he was talking about how his YouTube channel for, cooking has virtually no views, no subscribers, and he was Googling, and he saw there was this channel, it's like Drunk Kitchen, Drunk Cooking, Drunk TV, something like that, where it's just people who are plastered and they're cooking and showing you how to cook, and they have like 1.4 million subscribers and hundreds of thousands of views. And I said, and we were kind of joking about how there's this silly content on YouTube that does so well. And, I had mentioned he knows that I have a YouTube channel and I do this, and he's trying to find me. And you can't find me because I'm behind all these results that have, 500,000 views on like idiot speeds up video while taking his MacBook board and heat gunning it, like almost 1 million views. Idiot puts his motherboard into an oven and says, "Look, I fixed it." Almost 1 million views. Like, I'm showing you component level walkthroughs from start to finish, how to read block diagrams, how to troubleshoot electronic circuits. It's like 400 views. And he said, well, I guess you can't do it for your business, but I've thought about doing drunk cooking videos. And I said, what do you mean I can't do it for my business? And he's like, well, you work with stuff that's hot. And I'm like, you work with stuff that's hot. And he goes, you work with stuff that's expensive. I go, you work with stuff that's expensive. And he goes, you're messing with people's computers. And I go, well, you're messing with people's health. So we kind of started laughing and we came to this idea. So what if I started doing a video series of drunken motherboard repairs? And today I thought was a particularly good idea to start this because we had a person come in who was told that, it was impossible to fix a motherboard. It's not. And that person decided to leave, and they left really, really kind of paranoid about it. And then they came back this morning, and I was kind of confused when they came back this morning. The reason is because they would just seem so paranoid upon their initial visit. So in a non-invasive manner, I asked them about it, and they said, oh, when we went to the Genius Bar, the guy was so very adamant that these were not fixable, and that if somebody said that they could fix it, that they were probably trying to scam me, or that they would be taking my money, and I wouldn't be getting anything back. That this is impossible to do. So the title of today's video is does Drunken Lewis know more than the Genius Bar? And we're going to find that out. So this here is a bottle of Jagermeister. I plan on finishing most of it before the end of the video. And we're going to see if I can prove the dumbasses at the Genius Bar wrong while inebriated. So, start. We're also going to see if this changes view count and subscribers at all. Alright, so first things first, I plugged the MagSafe in over here, and the fan is not spinning. So the first thing we're going to do, since this is the drunken version of the motherboard repair channel before we start troubleshooting, is have another drink. I can't believe this. Drunken Cooking, 1.4 million subscribers. Yeah. Disgusting. So, what do we do when we don't have power, right? Well, what are we supposed to do? How do you check this thing? Let's pretend that I'm an idiot at the Genius Bar who's bad-mouthing an independent repair shop. The first thing that we do is check power rails, right? Now, I did a video on power rails recently where I explain why it is you need to know what the power rails are. And I see the Jagermeister is working already because I thought I hit the button to show the screen, and I don't see the screen. Oh, boy. Okay. I shrunk the wrong thing, didn't I? Here we go. Whoa, that looks cool. Okay. So this is an 820-3115 board. So this is my okay, so we're going to find that board schematic over here. This is an 820-3115 board. You'll notice I have a 4K TV that I use for this. You can't see it on there because that's it's shrunk to 1080p, but if you're looking at schematics, you're either looking at it in 4K or you're torturing yourself. So, this is the board schematic for this board, right? Now, this is all confusing shit probably to you. So see but this actually kind of makes it a little simpler. It tells you how everything works. So, for example, trackpad keyboard goes to this USB hub. This USB hub goes to the USB line of the PCH. It gives you chip numbers for each. And before we go to the next page, we take another drink. This chip also controls power. So watch, let's find out where that is. Okay, I guess we'll find out where that is on the next page. Okay, so over here you have different power lines. So for example, the ISL 6259 speaks with the SMC. You see SMC reset over there. This chip that creates 5 volts and 3 volts. Over here, let's see, it speaks with the PCH. As you can see, this is the PCH, and you have all these enable circuits over here. So not enable circuits, you have enable signals over there. And some of those are what come out over here. So P5VS3 underscore enable L, P5VS3 underscore enable. Same shit. I think the L over here just stands for Lewis because it knows that I'm reading the schematic. We move on to the next page. And the next page is empty. The only thing on this page is the hint as to where I get the schematics from. Man, there are so many motherfuckers that are like, where do I get schematics? Where do you get the schematics? I'd be able to fix these if only I knew where to get the schematics. It's like, you motherfuckers, like, where do you think I get them? Where could I possibly get them? Like, what do I need to do? Do I need to tattoo this on my forehead? I mean, come on. Okay, moving on. So that's the hint page. See, this is purely for hints. Next page. Ooh, yeah, this is what we call over my head. Next page. Okay, this is a bunch of test points, which I really don't care about. I'm not sure when I'm supposed to care about this. I don't know. I've never used it before. I think it's time for another drink. How much of this am I going to have to drink in one sitting without having eaten breakfast before I'm on the level of the Genius Bar? Okay, and here we go. So sometimes it's called power rails. Here it's called power aliases. Nothing with Apple is ever simple. They always have their own funny names for everything. So here they call it power aliases. And that's just their funny, silly way of saying power rails. So let's go down the list and see what we have. So over here it says PP Bus G3 Hot. I'm going to open a board view. A lot of you people just give me way too much credit. You really think I was born knowing where all this is. I was not. I don't know where any of this crap is. That's what this thing's job is to tell me. So let's go to PP Bus G3 Hot. So what I did there is I hit the N key. After I hit the N key, I typed in my power rail. I'm going to see where it is on the board. As you may be familiar with if you're a regular of this video series, is that the board is always turned on the screen a different fucking way than it is on the table. So on the table, I have it sitting down like this with the RAM at the top, right? You see how I have it here with the RAM slot at the top? So I sat it down that way on the table. And just to spite me, this piece of crap from 1995 opens it on the screen the wrong way. Now I can hit R to rotate it, but oh no, I can't because the Windows 95 error. And then when you move it around, it just changes to the other side of the screen. Horse shit. Okay. So right over here is where I can measure that. So let's see what I get at that point. Let's just bring this back up. I'm going to move my multimeter to where you can see it. Turn it on. Hopefully you can see that a little bit. Now here's a lot of people ask, how do you measure? How do you measure voltage? What probe goes where? So black is going to be the reference probe, and red is going to be what you want to measure. Now why do you need a reference probe? You need a reference probe because without a reference probe, you're not going to have a clue of what's going on. So for example, let's say I want to measure voltage over here at that fuse. Let's say I put the black probe on the fuse as well. It's going to say 0 volts. Well, this is not, stop thinking of this like a reference probe, because when you see it, this is the reference, this is the ground, this is the whatever, that's meaningless to you. What this thing does in voltage mode is it measures the difference between this probe and this probe. So this has no idea what voltage is. This has no idea what any of that crap is. All it does is it measures the difference between this and this. So whereas what voltage is, all it knows is the difference between this and this. So again, if I put the red and the black probe at the same point, it reads nothing. Now, if I put the black probe where I expect there to be 0 volts, for example, I put the black probe on a screw hole, because again, the screw hole is not going to have any power, then it shows me 12.56. Now, let's see what this software, this PDF reader, this schematic says I'm supposed to have for that voltage. The schematic says nothing because I opened the wrong one. Let's try that again. Schematic says 12.6 volts. Actually, it says 12.8. That's within an accepted percentage, so I don't really care. 12.56, 12.8, that's good enough. And since we have that voltage, it's time for another drink. Next is PPVin SWT29. That is a subrail of this. So you see how this has all these little lines coming down from it? That means that all of this shit is the same as, this is like the same as that. So if we have this, I have this. Not to mention, it doesn't turn on. I don't care about Thunderbolt. So T29 is Thunderbolt. I don't care about Thunderbolt because it doesn't turn on. Or it's DisplayPort. I forget if that's Thunderbolt or DisplayPort. Either way, it's something that I don't care about right now. If it doesn't turn on, who cares if you have Thunderbolt? Over here it says PPBus S5HS Computing iSense. That is also over here, and that's also 12.8 volts. Now when you this is not exactly the same as this because this is an underscore R. So before I thought that the underscore L was for Lewis, I'm pretty sure that the R over here stands for Rossman. So the schematic is talking to me in some way. And I think what it's saying is that since this is the same 12.8 volts, and this over here is close enough to that, that this is this. So if this exists, PPBus G3 hot exists, this exists, and I can move on. And I think the same is true for this shit, because that's also 12.8. PP18V5 DC in connector. In order to get 12 volts when I'm plugged into a charger, common sense and logic would dictate that the charger is working. Because if the 18 volts was not flowing through the charger, how would I be getting 12 volts from a voltage rail that's meant to come off of the 18 volt rail? What the fuck does that mean? Well, let me answer it for you. So, let me show you how that works. So this chip over here is going to control a buck converter, which if you watch my educational video series, you'd understand how it operates, which shows you that the PPBus G3 hot rail is made using this buck converter, and this buck converter comes from the charger. So PPDC in S5 charger. So if I have PPBus G3 hot, doesn't it seem to reason that this is just fine? So if I have this, and this comes from this, then that means that I have this, which means I can go back to the first page. This is one of the things I like about not using Linux anymore. You know, people are going to troll me, but I hit home on the keyboard, right? And it just went to the first page of the schematic. Like, that's just one of those things that when I was using Linux, it just, none of the PDF readers I used did it. You hit home on the schematic and it just ignores you. It's like, you know, like, we don't have drivers for home buttons in an open source operating system or PDF readers. PP3V42. Well, I have a green light on the charger, and I explained in other videos how the one-wire circuit is dependent on the PP3V42_G3 hot rail, which means that I have 3.42 volts. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go over here so I can show you. So as I explained, the green light is created when the charger is able to communicate with the SMC via the sys1 wire line. That's not going to happen if this chip is not doing its job. This chip, which speaks with the charger via the adapter sense line and the SMC via the sys1 wire line, is not going to do its job if it doesn't see a signal coming in on pin 1 to power it. That signal is not going to come through if this logic gate is not working. This logic gate will not work if it doesn't see SMC BC ACOC high at 2.7 volts or higher with 3.42 volts on pin 5 over here, which will power this little logic gate. Now, if we have a green light in the charger, that means the sys1 wire line is working, which means that this chip is working, which means that this chip is working, which means that PP3V42_G3 hot is working, which means that I don't have to measure it. But just in case you don't trust me, because I've drank a good amount of alcohol at this point, let me show you that that rail works just fine. Whoops, wrong one. 3.477, 3.42, close enough. My multimeter probably has dead batteries anyway. I'm one of those people that never replaces the multimeter battery. It's terrible. I really should, but it's like replacing the heating element in the Hacko. It's like remembering to order. There's all these small little things that I never get around to. Look at that. I hit home on the keyboard again, and it just worked. Okay, so next is going to be another power rail. So what's next? Oh, we had a power rail. Since a power rail came up, time for a drink. More than that. PPVRTC_G3_out, or otherwise known as PPVRTC_G3 hot. This is a 3-volt power line. What does that do? Now, if you don't know what RTC is, it's a clock signal that usually communicates with the PCH or the MCP, depending on whether you have a newer machine or an older machine. With a really new machine, the PCH is integrated into the CPU, such as in the Haswell platforms, which you're going to see, with the A1502 retinas, with the newer A1398 retinas. And on those machines, you don't have a PCH or an MCP. All you have is a CPU, and that CPU has the MCP integrated inside of it. That's why the CPU on Haswell platforms is a little bit larger than it was on the older Ivy Bridge and Sandy Bridge platforms. So this over here controls clock. Let's see where I can measure PPV RTC underscore G3 underscore PCH. And also, if I feel like it, I may just show you what RTC looks like. But I may not feel like it. Okay, so that doesn't show up. Now, one of the things that you need to be aware of here. Aha, I forgot to shrink this so you could not see anything while I was talking. Oh, whoopsie. Okay, so here's PPV RTC underscore G3 underscore PCH. So that was the last power rail. So let me just scroll back up and show you that. Okay, so we were over here, PPV and RTC underscore G3 underscore out. Now, one of the things that you need to know is that the board view and the schematic are often different from one another. So I searched for this using the Nets feature. The Nets feature on the board view software is where you hit the N button, and then you type in the name of any signal or voltage, and it will show you every single place it shows up. And it says not found. In addition to saying not found, it's also decided to not show me anything on the screen. So it decided to just make my board disappear. Because again, this software is shit from 1995 that we're stuck with because, you know, dare Apple actually allow people to fix their products? Dare they provide us with tools if we're willing to pay? Oh no, everything has to be, you know, taken off of Russian FTP servers and hidden and bullshit. Okay, so let's search for one of these resistors, R1802 and R1803, because on one of these resistors, on one side of it, we're going to see PPV RTC underscore G3 underscore PCH. I started using the Nets feature instead of the component feature that I should have been. Okay, R1802 and R1803. Both of those resistors sit over here. And let's see which side of the resistor is going to have the power that we want. So the inside of each resistor will have the power that it is we are looking for. Let's take a look over here. That is a lot of really, really tiny resistors in a very crammed area. Yeah, that's not fun. Let's see if I can show you under the microscope what I mean when I say not fun. Let's turn the light for the microscope on. Swing this thing over on the desk. This would be great if I had a larger room for doing this, but the reality is I have a room that's about the size of the walk-in refrigerator at a restaurant outside of New York that I'm using for this. Okay, let's set it up so that you can see what it is I'm talking about. Okay. Whoops, not it. Oh, you're not plugged in. Well, of course you're not going to work if you're not plugged in. Let's plug you in. For a moment, you won't see me anymore, but I assure you that I'm still here. Whoops. Come on. Down. Down. Okay. Keyboard. This is the one thing that I hate the most about wireless keyboards, is if you have my memory, they just disappear. Okay, so the keyboard's right in front of me. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to hit full screen on that. I'm going to click microscope and shrink the microscope a little. So, what do I mean when I say this is a pain in the ass? So this is that area of the board. Now I got to find those two resistors. Really? Oh, Jeez. Okay, so we got this big cap over there, right? And we scroll over to where we see 3 resistors going down. Then we have that mess. And we have U and U. Okay, so it's these two. So in over there and over there. Let's plug the board in and measure voltage at that point. Great to know that my hands are just as useless while drunk as they are while sober. Okay, we have a green light. And now we measure the voltage. 3.4 volts, which is precisely what I was expecting, which means that that power rail works just fine. Now we move on to the next power rail. Let's go back to the schematic, which means moving this over here. Hello, Veneer. I'm good, but thank you. I appreciate that. No, I'm all set. Yes. Okay. Thank you for asking, Veneer. That was very nice of you. You have beef mashed potatoes? You ruined my new vegetarian diet. Did I tell you about my new vegetarian diet? Hmm? I'm trying to get back in shape, Veneer. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, since we have a power rail that worked, since we have a working power rail, another drink.
Seriously, you planning to get drunk here?
Not off of this
Oh yeah, right.
little minuscule bottle.
The kid's drunk most.
What about drunk bosses?
Keep the board on fire.
The Genius Bar told this woman that if anybody says that they can fix your board, that they're scamming you. Because that's not possible. You can't make this shit up in here. So, the next thing we're going to do is measure the next power rail, which is PP5VS5_LDO. PP5VS5 is a rail that's created by the U7201, and LDO is a voltage converter that takes a voltage that's very slightly higher than the voltage we're trying to create, like a 6-volt rail, and turns it into a 5-volt rail. And that's the voltage that it uses as an internal reference to create PP5VS3, which is an important power rail for the machine to be used to turn on. That powers the CPU buck converter, that powers the fans, and everything else. So let's check that out and see where PP5VS5 comes from and see if we have it. Apparently, it seems my PDF reader has drank more than I have because it can't find it. Or I'm putting the wrong number in. One of the two. So here is U7200, which is responsible for that power rail. Now, in this area, we're going to find a little capacitor with PP5VS5_LDO. The idea of this video is to see if a drunk idiot can beat the Genius Bar. Right over here is that capacitor, so C7273. And let's see, where is C7273 here? Here we go, so that is right off of PP5VS5_LDO. And now let's measure what we get off of that. Now that capacitor is going to a pin of this chip. Let's put the multimeter up. It looks like the multimeter is also more drunk than I am since it just fell down. How did it fall down? Okay. Let's put this back to full screen. And let's measure that part of the board. But before we measure that part of the board, another drink. Now remember, black goes to ground. Ground is a screw hole. Ground is casing. Ground is a piece of metal that has nothing to do with the circuit, pretty much. And then there's nothing to do with actual power rails within the circuit. So if you don't know where to put this, a screw hole on the PC board is your best bet. Now when we measure at that capacitor, what we get with everything plugged in, nothing. I think I'm on to something. Now the chip responsible for creating that is, as I showed you, U7200. Sometimes U7201 in older boards. U7200. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to replace this, and I'm going to see if that power rail returns. And if that power rail returns, I'd also like to see if the machine works. Because right now I have no spinning fan, which makes me very, very sad. So we're going to turn on the soldering iron. We're going to turn on the hot air station. We're going to wait a little bit for it to get hot. Because this hot air station has a heating element that does not work. And I've been complaining about that heating element for weeks now. And I haven't done anything about it because it still works. I have other things to do with my life than worry about a heating element. I'm telling you, the second that I'm done with this video, I'm going to say, I'm going to get that heating element replaced. And there's going to be like, the phone's going to ring 3 times and 2 people are going to walk into my office. And 11 o'clock is going to come by and, oh, whoops, I forgot about it. I'm falling asleep. While we're waiting for the heating element to get hot, let's take a look at what it is we're going to be replacing today. Come on, Open Broadcaster. Let's remove this chip. Now, one of the things that you need to do when you're removing this chip and putting it back on is remember the orientation. Even though many different Apple boards use this chip, the A20-2530, A20-2879, A20-2936, A20-3115 in chronological order, and maybe, I don't remember quite off the top of my head, but maybe even the 2008 A20-2327 use this chip. They use it in different orientations. So the older boards use it in a different orientation than the newer one. So if you simply put it on with the orientation that you're used to, you may put the chip back on the board the wrong way, which will cause you to short power rails to ground, which will destroy traces in the board, destroy the chip, and fuck up your board to high hell. And that's bad. These tweezers are bullshit. Let's get a set of tweezers that are not bullshit. Okay, let's try these tweezers. These tweezers have wires running off of them. Nothing is easy. Nothing is easy. Well, can nothing be simple? I can't put this directly over the chip because this microscope has to be right up on the board in order to see anything. So we take this chip, I remember the way it's oriented, and we say goodbye. And you're on the floor. I don't feel bad throwing chips on the floor because I know that they go to a different dimension. It's not actually disposed of on my floor. You don't understand. You know how many chips or little things fall on the floor where I know it fell directly down right like that, and I don't find it if I search for days and days. So it must be transported to another dimension. And armed with that knowledge that it's going to another dimension, shouldn't it be fair that if I just throw something away because I don't need it, that I can throw it on the floor and it won't be there later? That it won't contribute to the mess? That it won't contribute to the junk in my office? It can't possibly. Because every time I try to find something that fell on the floor, any little SMD, even if it's a large chip, it could be a BGA chip, it could be an SMC, it's not there. So, I think I'm good. Yeah, I wish I could blame the whole hands not being steady on the drinking thing, but it's like that all the time. There's not much I can do about it. This is why when we do that micro soldering course, People have asked me, so like, why is Jessa doing the soldering course and Lewis is doing the MacBook board repair course? Or why is that course a prerequisite? Because I'm not teaching you people how to solder. Like, what do I have to teach you about soldering, really? Now, look at this. I don't have shit to teach you about soldering. So then we take another chip off of our spool. Remember the video, Real Men Stock Parts? Yeah. See, you know why I can do this with 1 day turnaround or less? Because I have it here. Because I decided that I am going to spend the $5 to have this here so that if somebody needs something immediately, if their decision as to whether or not to fix it or buy a new one is based on how fast I can do it, that I can sell them based on the fact that I can do it quickly. So that's $300-something that I'm going to get to make because I stocked a $5 chip. I feel it's worth it to me, but a lot of people who don't stock anything don't think it's worth it to them. Which is why I am getting the money. And I can afford the high-end liquor, the best of the best, like this little $15 bottle of Jagermeister. Well, they gotta drink Smirnoff. That is not soldered properly. That is still not soldered properly. Come on, get hot, Echo. Get hot. Beep. Beep. Excellent. You beeped. It's hot. Okay. I like the curve tipped. A lot of people have said you don't have a QFN soldering video, and that's because they didn't search for the video entitled QFN soldering video. But one of the things I didn't talk about in that video that I should talk about here, see how this tip is kind of curved? Yeah, you can laugh. That's as steady as I can hold my hand. So see how the tip is curved? So what it does is it allows me to get right under every single one of those legs. So when I put new flux on and new solder, I know that I'm getting under and touch, and you can actually feel the groove as you're touching each one. And it's helpful because a lot of the times what you're going to find is that your joints are not perfect or they're not even made. And one of the ways that you can ensure that you make them, if you're a newbie to QFN soldering, is you can actually touch each individual one and solder them individually. So now that I've done that, let's see if this thing turns on, or if I at the very least have a power rail that I did not have before. So let me turn off this air filter because this thing is fucking deafening. I wish somebody would make a solder on a flux that does not create smoke. I'd pay good money for that. So we plug the fan in. After we plug the fan in, we plug the charger power in. We wiggle it because the DC inboard is not aligned right. Wiggle it again. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a fan spinning. That is the Apple's. That is the Genius Bar being full of idiots. That is a drunk jackass fixing a board that the Apple Store said, if somebody said that you can fix that, you're getting scammed. Bullshit. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put this into a computer. I'm going to pause this so that I can walk up front and find the computer and put this into it, just so that I can show you what complete shit they are full of. Oh, boy. But before I walk up front, since we fixed the board that they said I have to be a scammer for me telling people that I can fix, it's time for another drink. So here we have the computer, and I'm going to put it back together. We're going to turn it on, and we're going to see that it works. And we're going to see that the entire myth that you have to spend $1,100 or $1,700 or $700 every time there's a logic board problem is a myth and a bunch of bullshit. perpetuated by a company that always wants you to buy new instead of fixing your old when you've spent $1,200 or $1,500 or $1,700 on it. So the first thing I got to do now is find alcohol. And I don't mean Jagermeister, I mean something I can clean the heatsink with. Okay, in absence of alcohol, methyl ethyl ketone should do just fine. What a lovely smell. And even what a nicer clean. Always make sure that the heatsink and the chip die are clean. You don't want to be putting thermal paste on top of it when it's not clean. Because all of us who repair these products for a living are very well aware of the fact that the cooling inside of Apple laptops is complete and utter dog shit. So if we do anything to block the cooling inside of an Apple laptop, we are going to contribute to it failing early. Because these things are already designed to run boiling hot all the time with crappy ventilation or in the case of almost every machine they've ever made, no ventilation with the no holes in the bottom. Just those little slits in the back that are just You know, really, I open my ThinkPad, not to talk about Apple versus PC or any of that crap in here, because I've always said what you need to use is what makes you the most productive. There is no best. There is no best. There is what makes you the most productive. But when it comes to thermal design, these are things where it's like, my T520 was here when there was sheetrock and drywall and wood getting cut, and there was no dust inside the heatsink. I mean, that thing was designed, seriously, it was designed in a way where the fan just said dust in, dust out, GTFO. And this thing, it's like, it's filled with crap to the point where the fan's barely spinning after a few years. Just, ugh. Anybody who opens this stuff regularly, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. They just trap dust in. I don't like the speaker and the microphone jiggling around, so what I like to do is I like to actually apply some adhesive under it when I'm done so that it doesn't jiggle around, because if it jiggles around, it's going to sound funny. You can always place the microphone and the speaker back exactly the way they were, and it'll sit in place, but the thing is, there's a chance of it jiggling around. And even though I know that laptop speakers sound like crap, I'm completely aware that laptop speakers sound like complete and utter shit, and that there's nothing I can do to make it sound better, because they're a joke. But if a user gets their laptop back and they hear jiggling that they did not hear before, it doesn't matter what type of job you did, it doesn't matter how much they like you, what they're going to assume is that you did some half-ass bullshit, and they're going to carry that with them, even if they don't complain. Because that's the thing, a lot of people, they don't complain about the petty stuff, they don't, because they don't want to seem petty. But if they get something back and it's just not as good as it could be, they're going to be like, yeah, it worked, but after I got it back from that place, this wasn't that great. And that's going to keep them from recommending you. And that's going to keep you from getting future business. So it's one of those things to think about. Like every time you're putting any one of these things back together, you want to put it back so that the user experience with the product is as good as it could be. Again, I'm not saying give away free shit. I'm not saying, if the screen is broken, they don't want to pay for a screen, that I'm giving them a free screen. Get out of here with that crap. But the point is you should make an effort to put it back together properly. You should make an effort to put it back together where it performs and works the way it's supposed to. Not just some half-ass throwing it together nonsense. That also means having the right screwdriver. Here we go. And one of the other reasons I'm doing this video, admittedly, it was a funny little joke, and I am going to go to that restaurant later today, and I'm going to show them this, and they're going to laugh that I actually did the idea of a drunk component level motherboard repair video. But the other thing that really drives me crazy is Apple stores bad mouthing independent repair shops. I understand why Apple badmouths independent repair shops. I honestly do. Like when Apple fixes the iPhone 6 with an original screen for $109 and you have all these fucktards who are using junk and the cheapest junk that they can buy and charging more money and not telling their customers that they could get it done in Apple. I get it because a lot of independent let's be 100% honest with ourselves here. A lot of the repair business, a lot of the people in the repair business, they're here because they failed at another profession. And they are here to get as much money out of anybody as they can, and they don't really give a fuck about you, the customer. They don't really give a fuck about whether you leave happy. They don't give a fuck about whether you feel like you were treated properly. It's like if you agreed to something and they were able to beat you into agreeing with something, then you should leave a 5-star review and love them and blow them and all that. And I've never been a part of that. I believe in providing solutions that are best for your given situation, and then if I provide you with the best given solution, even if it's not giving me money, that you'll be happy that I did that. Maybe you'll come back for something else, and who knows? Maybe you're a millionaire who, again, like I met somebody last week. I'm not going to say who, but I googled them after I got to see their project. I googled them. This person's worth $150 million, and it's a project that I may actually be getting for something I'll be talking about in a future video. And it was because somebody recommended me because I didn't rip them off. It was somebody who didn't even have service here. I simply told them that Apple was covering a specific problem of theirs. It was back when Apple was covering the 2010 820-2850 board for free. I looked the guy's ticket up. I could have taken money there. I didn't take money, and because of it, a friend of his who has a net worth of $150 million decided they would call my company with little experience in this particular niche that I was filling and have me do a project instead of many other companies. So you really don't know when that shit's going to come back to you. But I assure you it does. But anyway, back to the subject of Apple. Yeah, I just hate that. Even though I understand why they badmouth a lot of independent repair stores, I get it because a lot of them are just out for the money. They're just out to make as much as they can, and they're just out to fuck you and use the cheapest, shittiest parts and offer the crappiest, uninformed service. There are also a lot of them out there that really provide you with the best service possible, and they're out there to provide you with options you don't get when you go to the Apple store and they say, fuck you, pay me 90% of what you paid when you bought the damn computer to fix your $5 problem. I don't like that they have absolutely zero support for anybody who seeks to support their products outside of their silly scheme of their silly pricing tiers or outside of their ecosystem. I don't like it is pretty much, they make it hard for you. They not only not support you, but they actively engage in activities to make it virtually impossible for the independent repair store to do any of the work that I'm doing. It would be nice if I didn't have to go to Russian websites and use Babelfish and translate shit to get schematics and information that I needed. It would be nice if, didn't have to worry about the fact that I potentially breaking the law every time I upload a motherboard repair video. But no. Alright, so I'm going to plug it in. We're going to see if this thing turns on and works. Okay, so it beeps. So when you turn it on, it beeps at me. Now that could be a bad PCH, it could be a bad RAM stick, it could be a bad RAM slot. So one of the things to know about these machines, this is important for drop damage, is that the bottom RAM slot is soldered via BGA, whereas the top RAM slot is soldered via through-hole soldering. Now the importance of this is that the through-hole soldered slot is more durable. So most of the time the top slot will work after a drop, but the bottom one won't. The same is true if you're soldering components on the board and the RAM is still in the slot. If you're soldering components on this motherboard and the RAM is still in the slot, one of the problems that you're going to encounter is that the weight of the RAM is actually going to pull the BGA pad away from the motherboard. I'm sure this is all stuff that they tell you at the Genius Bar. So as you can see, I've turned it on, and I'm booting into an operating system. So this was a machine where the customer was told by Apple that they had to have been getting scammed if somebody said that they were able to fix a motherboard, that it's simply not possible to fix a motherboard, that they must be just taking your money. And again, one of the reasons that I have to deal with constant customer paranoia, it's because of what other repair shops do. A lot of it is what other repair shops do. A lot of it is the fact that a lot of repair shops are out there to take as much money as they can from you. They're out there to protect themselves. They're out there to charge diagnosis fees to ensure that you're willing to spend money on them, even, to ensure that they get paid even if the quote that they give you is ridiculous. So let's say you have a $1,000 computer, they tell you $1,100 to fix it. It doesn't matter because they've made their $100 diagnosis fee off you. By the way, since it works, I think it's time for another drink. But the other reason I have to deal with constant customer paranoia is Apple. Really, like when the company who made the device with a pretty store, again, I didn't have hundreds of billions of dollars to build my store. I built my store with under $10,000. I built my store with like my couch change. It looks like this. Like, my paper towels are sitting in the corner over there, which you control as much as you want. And all these other videos were like, why do you have paper towels in the corner of your office? I have paper towels in the corner of my office because I have a 700 square foot space within which to fit 4 employees and a world-class motherboard repair center. And that's what you get. But the whole idea is, we have to impress people based on our limited resources, and it's more difficult to do that when you're dealing with a $150 billion company with a beautiful retail store and people that are wearing name tags and Apple shirts and all that, and with all this beautiful environment around you telling you, yeah, don't go to that guy, they're a ripoff. Like, fuck you, really, for making it harder. People like us to help people to fix the products that you send away. So this works perfectly. And in spite of the fact that I am very much so intoxicated because I haven't had anything to eat for breakfast or lunch at 4:52 p.m. because it's been a busy day, and I just drank a good amount of Jagermeister, I was able to troubleshoot and repair a MacBook Pro motherboard and walk you through the entire process from start to finish. So who do you trust with your computer? The Genius Bar or me? I'll leave it up to you.